read a survey recently about how Christians are known to be the most judgmental people in society. What a tragic report card. How can a religion based on grace be characterised for judging others? Jesus summed up the very heart of Christianity when he said that all the commandments, 613 in his Jewish tradition, were summed up in two: loving God and loving people. And these two commandments focus on what we do, not on what we don't do. Yet even with Jesus' teaching, we seem to prefer to go back to our long list of laws, so much so that we've become known for it. Self-righteousness, condemnation, and finger-pointing seem to have become the order of the day. And it's all the more repugnant when cloaked in religiosity. How did we get it so wrong? I'd like to suggest two reasons for a tendency towards judgmentalism and what we can do about it. The first reason is that living by love rather than law is difficult. It's hard because it's a higher standard. You see, living by law usually just involves external behaviours, and we can tick the box when we know we've done the right thing. But living by love forces us to orient ourselves to the heart, to what's going on inside of us, to consider the person and what is loving for them. And that's a much higher standard that Jesus constantly called us to, and our humanity resists it. The second reason is perhaps we haven't fully understood Jesus. You see, Jesus was without sin, but he often broke the law in preference for love. Let me give you a couple of examples. For example, he healed the crippled man on the Sabbath and he told him to carry his mat, which was a direct contravention of the law, but it was loving. And then he touched people with skin diseases. Again, a contravention of the law, but it was loving. See, Jesus constantly pointed to the bigger intent, that is, to love people. Paul reflects on Jesus' actions later on, and he said that love fulfills the law and that Christ fulfills the law. Jesus orients us towards love. And I think one of the reasons why he does that is because the outcome is so much more powerful. You see, we have laws to regulate our external behaviour. They're needed to help us to live in a civilised society. But law doesn't change anybody's heart, and law is limited. Think about our laws today in our society. You know, you just can't make a law for every situation. And in fact, if you look at legislation, it's constantly growing as people try and consider every different scenario. And defence lawyers work very hard to try and get round the law, to find those exceptions and those loopholes to make a way through. In the Jewish Torah, in the Jewish law that Jesus lived under, he had 613 commandments. But even in the Jewish tradition, more laws were created through the Talmud, the oral law. And the idea was that they tried to create a fence around the law. If you weren't supposed to work on the Sabbath, well, then you shouldn't carry something that would make you work on the Sabbath or that would tempt you to work on the Sabbath. And those laws continue to grow over and over again. You see, law is limited. So how then do we live? Well, I love what Augustine said: love and do what you want. Live by love, not by law. I remember hearing a story about a man whose dream was to drive on the Autobahn in Germany where there's no speeding restrictions. And he's there with his family and he's about to put his foot on the accelerator. His wife says to him, "Remember, you love your family." Love became the restraint, the greater principle that he lived by. To love is the higher fulfillment of the law. To love is to be like Jesus. May we be known by how much we love. Thanks for listening to Everyday God Conversations today. For more on having your own God conversation, go to godconversations.com.